Okay, so let's come on back to our mats and come down into lying release as we always do. With the feet flat on the floor, knees bent. And by the way, if you don't want to have your feet flat on the floor, you could put a cushion or a bolster under your knees instead. Sometimes, some days, having that support of the bolster, that physical support can help support us in other ways as well. And having your arms in a comfortable position, taking a moment to notice how you're meeting the mat this morning. I have to change the position in my computer. So noting not just how you're physically meeting the mat, but how you're emotionally meeting the mat today. And energetically meeting the mat. And then noticing where you feel the breath in your body. And is the breath moving freely throughout the body? Or do you feel like there's maybe a little stuckness or a bit of a blockage somewhere? Without judgment, just noticing. And then let's take the hands, turn the palms towards the ceiling if they're not already there. And then let the thumbs cross the palms so that the tips of the thumbs touch the base of the ring fingers, both hands. And then let the fingers be together so that there's no space between the fingers. And then let's take those palms, keep that hand position. This is called a mudra. Take those hands and place them sort of just above the navel so that the hands will sort of point upwards towards the heart. Let it be comfortable in your wrists and shoulders. And then just breathe, holding this mudra. And notice anything at all that comes up for you, physical or not physical. Watching the breath is something that we usually do with mudras because breath can give us information. You could notice where you feel the breath. You could notice the speed of the breath. and just how this makes you feel in general. So this particular mudra tends to activate the solar plexus area as well as the heart area. And we get our strength from our solar plexus. And then, of course, compassion, holding loved ones in the heart area. We're kind of getting what we need here with this mudra. We're getting that strength that we require and also some compassion for ourselves. That's a good thing to have. And that sense of holding loved ones in our hearts. And when you're ready, you can release your hands to a comfortable position. Maybe give your fingers a little bit of a wiggle if they feel a little stiffness from being held in one position for a while. And let's just do a little bit of jaw release before we move on to much more movement. So let's take the tip of our tongue and press it into the right cheek, kind of below the eye, that direction. Keep that slow, easeful breathing as you do this. And then you can release, let the tongue rest back in your mouth, and then repeat that 2 more times on the same side. So remember that you're going slowly. Movement is more subtle. It's always important to have easeful breathing. That's the most important part of the exercise. And then just take a pause once you've done that 3 times. Take a little pause, notice. And then let's repeat that again, but this time we can turn the head very gently to the right as well. Just a small, little, comfortable, easeful turn of the head. And we'll repeat this so that we've done it a total of 3 times. You can notice sensations in the jaw, the neck, shoulders, eyes. Notice if your eyes are turning to the right with your tongue and your head. And then once you've completed your 3, take a pause. Notice how the face feels, jaw, neck, eyes. And you might feel quite a difference from one side to the other. And let's do the same thing on the other side. So we'll start with just the tongue going towards the left. And then back to center. And doing that 2 more times. Nice and slow. It's not the bigness of the movement, but the slowness of the movement, the doing less, where the learning actually occurs in the brain. And then taking your pause and then doing the same thing 3 times, but adding the slight head turn to the left, very slight. And you can add in letting the eyes turn to the left also. 3 times in total, and then rest. And once you've completed your 3 and you're taking your rest and noticing sensations, notice how your jaw is sitting now. And if it feels somehow looser or whatever it is that you notice. You might even feel like your eyes are bigger. Sometimes that happens. And let's gently bring some movement into the legs, so you can bring your attention to your right leg first. And as you exhale, just lengthen that leg along the floor. So if you're wearing slippers like I am, it will slide quite nicely. If it doesn't slide because you have bare feet, then that's okay. Just do your best to let it slide. And then as you inhale, you can bring that same leg back to its original position of knee bent and switch to the left leg on your next exhale. So we're just going to alternate a few times. And notice what else is moving. The shape of your spine. What happens in the side body. Can you even feel something in the throat or the neck with this movement? And you can let this be your last round. So finish up with the left leg and then come back to stillness and notice. And then let's lengthen both legs along the floor. And on an inhalation, we'll lift both arms up and overhead so that they come towards the floor, maybe touching the floor, or folded blanket if they don't come to the floor, behind your head. And then exhaling, letting them float back down. And the next time, let's just bring one arm up. Let it float back down. And then we'll switch to the opposite arm. So we'll alternate back and forth a couple of times at your own pace. And noticing what's happening in the body as your arms gently float up. You'll obviously sense things in the shoulder. What about the side body, the spine? The back of the neck. And then let's let both arms come up and overhead again. You can hold them here for a couple of breaths. Smooth, easeful breathing. And then the arms can float back down by your side. Take a little pause and notice. And then let's bend in the knees and roll over to one side so you can push yourself up into a seated position. So I always recommend sitting up on a bolster or a folded blanket, or even just rolling up the back of your mat. Also, you can sit in a chair. Okay, Danielle is gone. Okay, so in sitting with that nice long spine, let's let the arms float up on an inhale so they're nice and wide. And then on an exhalation, we can let the hands come towards the heart. Inhaling the arms wide, exhaling hands to heart. And just to add a little bit of brain work here, we can alternate which hand comes to the heart first. So you could think of, as the arms are open wide, you could think of gathering your loved ones energetically and placing them in your heart. Let's do this one more time. And then we can release our arms back down by our sides. And notice how that feels. That does tend to open up the chest a little bit. So this time we're going to do something just a little bit different. We're going to inhale, right arm up towards ceiling and look towards the left. And then exhale, let the arm float down and the head come back to center. And on the next inhalation, it'll be left arm that reaches up and head turns towards the right. Exhale to center. And just try this a few times at your own pace. So we're lengthening in the side body. We're getting some rotation in the cervical spine. Movement in the shoulders. There might be some cracking. That's okay. It happens. So let's do one more in each direction, or at least so that you've done an even number on both sides. And we'll take our pause. And let's open our arms wide again on the inhalation, and let's do a hug on the exhalation. So we can hug ourselves with compassion, inhaling arms out, exhaling, hug with the other arm on top. We can be hugging our loved ones into us. Compassion for ourselves, acceptance even. Whatever resonates for you today. Feel how that feels in the shoulder blades as you hug yourself. Let the shoulders drop down as you hug yourself also. Let's do one more on each side. And then releasing the arms back to a comfortable position. Then we'll do some seated arch and curl. So on the exhalation, we can let the shoulders come forward, the belly draw towards the spine, and the head drop so the chin comes towards the chest. And then on the inhalation, the shoulders roll back, belly comes forward, chin comes more towards the ceiling. And just do this a few times at your own pace. We're allowing the muscles of the front and the back of the body to remember how to work together. As the front contracts, the back lengthens. And as the front lengthens, the back contracts. And the next time you inhale and the chest opens up and the head comes back, can let your jaw open gently, let the eyes look up, and let the tongue stick out, but not towards the ceiling, either straight out or more towards your chin. And we could stay here and just breathe here for a few breaths. This is our lion face pose. And then when you're ready, inhaling back to center. It's another good one for the jaw, but also good for the eyes. If your eyes are feeling tired from working at the computer all day, just take a moment and do some lion face, as long as you're not on a meeting where people can see you. All right, let's come on to our hands and knees. So remember that you can put a folded blanket under your knees to give a little extra softness, and you can roll up the front of your blanket to take, or sorry, the front of your mat to take some pressure off of your wrists. And you have to try and scooch the dog off the mat. Can you lay down, buddy? That's a good boy. So we're going to do some cat-cow, but we're going to think about focusing on the heart and the chest area. And we usually talk about moving from the low spine up. It's like a wave up through the spine, whether we're going into cat or we're going into cow. And we do want to keep that sense. We also want to pay attention to the breath and the belly. So I'm going to start in just tabletop and then inhale here. As I exhale, draw my belly towards my spine so that I can more easily curl into my Halloween cat. And then as I inhale, I'm going to think about inhaling, filling up my belly and letting that air wave up through my front, but it also waves up through my spine so that my heart is coming forward. So continue this at your own pace. Make sure you're pressing into your fingertips so that we're taking more pressure off of the wrists. Sounds like there's a lot to think about, but once you've done it a few times, it will make more sense and seem less complicated. So when we're in this way backed cow, we have this opening of the heart. And when we're in the Halloween cat pose, we have more of an internal focus, and there's a spaciousness that happens between the shoulder blades. Let's do 2 more. So once you've completed your 2, you can inhale back to tabletop. And then we're going to come to standing from here. So you might want to sit back on your heels or roll over onto one hip so that you can remove your socks if you're wearing socks, which I am. And then come up to standing. And adjusting all the cameras. Coming into Tadasana as we do when we stand. So feet are hip width distance apart. The knees are pointing straight ahead, and we have that nice stacking of the joints, but still softness in the knees. So we don't want to be hyperextending the knees. And you can take a breath and just feel rootedness. Feel your feet rooting down into the ground. And then let's inhale the arms wide. Exhale, bring them to the heart. Hands to heart, not arms to heart. Inhale, arms a little higher, maybe to a Y. Exhaling, hands to heart. And this time, arms come higher, maybe pointing towards the ceiling. Exhale, hands to heart. And let's inhale the arms up towards ceiling again. We'll hold here and let's come up on our toes. I'm just breathing here, relaxed, easeful breathing. You can always put a hand on a chair or a wall if your balance is a challenge this morning. And exhaling, the arms float down and the heels come down gracefully instead of slamming down. And let's step straight back with the right foot. So we have our warrior 1 leg position. And then we'll inhale, arms wide. And exhale, hands to heart, front leg lengthens. And continue this a few times at your own pace, alternating which hand comes to the heart. Or if you would rather bring your hands more to the navel area today, maybe it's more strength than heart that you need today, then please do that. And the next time your arms come open wide and your front knee bends, let's hold here for a few breaths. And you could gently tilt your head towards the ceiling. But when I say the ceiling, I mean more like where the wall meets the ceiling. because it's not great to have your head tipped way back. It's just, it puts a lot of strain on the body, on the cervical spine, and we don't want to do that. And pressing down into the feet, grounding down, breathing into the belly. On the exhalation, drawing the belly in towards the spine. And you can feel a lengthening that happens in the body as you do that. And then on an exhalation, you can let the arms float down, front leg lengthen, step forward with your back foot so you're back into Tadasana again. And just take your pause, notice how that feels, that one-sided movement. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So stepping back with the left foot this time. And inhaling, arms wide, front knee bends. Exhaling, hands come to heart or to the solar plexus area. And if you'd rather, you could do some hugs here. So the hug could happen on the exhalation, whatever you need today. The hugs feel really good for the shoulders. So if your shoulders are needing some attention today, then definitely do the hugs. And the next time your arms come open wide and your front knee bends, let's hold here. Again, you could choose to tilt your head slightly towards the ceiling. Notice if if your shoulders are creeping towards your ears, and see if you can relax them down. Connect with the breath. One more breath here. And then exhaling, arms float down, front leg lengthens, and step forward with your back foot. So we're back in Tadasana. Take your pause to notice how this feels. And then let's inhale the arms up towards the ceiling. And as we exhale, draw the belly towards the spine and hinge at the hips into a half forward fold so that the torso is level with the floor, parallel to the floor. Bending in the knees, arms to the side. Inhale, back up, arms up towards the ceiling. Head can tilt towards ceiling. Exhale into your forward fold, maybe coming a little further into your forward fold. Bending in the knees, pressing into the feet, inhaling all the way back up, arms towards ceiling. Exhale into your version of the forward fold, and we'll hold here for a few breaths. So you could have your hands on the floor and your spine long and more parallel to the floor on the inhalation, and then let your torso come closer to your body on exhalation. We're thinking about expanding outwards and then coming back to center. You might like to just stay in stillness and let the top of the head release towards the floor. And just have a sense of releasing any tensions, the shoulders, from the back, the neck, from the face. And then from here, we're going to come back down to the mat on our stomachs. So go ahead and bend in the knees, have your hands on the floor, come down onto your stomach. You could have a folded blanket underneath your pelvis if you would like. And you can bend your elbows and have the palms of your hands resting on the mat about where your shoulders are, below your shoulders, so that your elbows are in closer to your body. They're not out like wings. And they're sort of, the elbows are pointing towards the bottom of your mat, basically. That's what's happening. I mean, you could try winging your elbows out and see how that feels in your shoulders. See if that feels like that would be a stable and positive thing to do. Have your arms in that position while you lift. I don't think so. You might think differently. And then tuck your elbows back in and notice how your shoulders draw back down away from your eyes as that happens. So these are all little subtle, interesting connections to make. And then we usually give the cue to ground the front of your pelvis down into the mat. So do that and notice how your belly feels and what happens in your low spine. And then unground the front of that pelvis. See how your belly feels, the low part of the spine. And then try it again, ground down. Now, do you sense that this is a safer place, a more supported place for you to lengthen and lift the chest from? This is why we give this cue, because we have to have support for that low spine in order to do baby cobra, or else we're going to hurt ourselves, and we don't want to do that. So, grounding down the front of the pelvis into the mat. You probably feel some firmness happening in the belly then. And then as we inhale, we think about lengthening in the spine and lifting gently off the floor. So we're not pushing into the hands at all. You could release your hands from the mat and it wouldn't change the movement. And then exhaling, floating back down. And just do this a few times at your own pace, making sure that you ground down in the front of the pelvis first. So that's on the exhalation. And then as we inhale, lengthen in the spine, lift up gently. Exhaling down. So when you come down on the exhalation, you can have your forehead to the floor, or you could alternate turning your head from one side to the other. For some people, forehead on the floor is quite comfortable, and for others, it is not. Just a few times, moving in and out. Really having a sense of that lengthening in the spine. There should be no strain in the low back, no compression of the vertebrae there. And the next time you float back down to the mat, Then just come into stillness. Let your arms come into a comfortable position. Let your head turn to one side if you wish. Completely relax and have a sense of the body just melting, like just a puddle melting into the mat. And then we want to always counterpose our back bends, because that was a back bend, with a forward bend. So either pressing the buttocks back towards the heels and letting the forehead release into the floor, or the stacked hands in child's pose, or coming on to your back and hugging your knees in towards your chest in little boat. Either of those are a very good thing to do after a back bend. Baby cobra is a back bend, but I didn't talk about it that way because as soon as I say back bend, people start compressing their vertebrae. So much better to think about it in terms of lengthening and lifting the chest. Much safer. Releasing any tension from the back body. Having a chance to have an inward focus, because anything that opens the chest is not usually an internal focus. Putting your heart out there. Also getting a little bit of a massage to the abdominal organs. Even if you're in stillness, just the movement of the breath helps to massage those organs if you're breathing into your belly. And if you're not already on your back, come on to your back now. We'll do a little bit of wash rag. It's always nice to have a little bit of a twist happening at the end of class if there's enough time. So knees are bent, but the heels are far from the buttocks and the legs are wide. Arms can be out in a T position, and on the exhalation, the knees drop towards the floor on the same side. Inhale to center, and exhaling, knees to the opposite side. And the head can turn and look in the opposite direction to where the knees are going. Shoulders are on the floor. Just a few times at your own pace. Let's do one more full round. Coming back to center. And And you can get ready for Shavasana. So you might be happy to just stay right here, just as you are for Shavasana. You also might like to add socks and sweaters and blankets and things like that. So go ahead and add whatever you would like and find your position of comfort, which could be with knees bent. If you want to bend your knees, you might consider supporting them with a bolster or a cushion or something, just so you don't feel like you have to hold them up. Generally, we have arms long and by our sides, but not touching our sides. Generally, palms are facing the ceiling because it's a more of a receiving position and space between the legs. We're almost making a star shape with the body. The head is the point. In a state of balance. When we're in this star shape, we're in a state of balance. And with each exhalation, letting the body sink more deeply into the mat, into the support of the earth. With each exhalation, feeling more and more relaxed. Softness in the body. Softness in the breath. Softness in the face. All is quiet. All is still. No effort required here. And allow yourself to stay here for the next 2 minutes in complete relaxation and simply breathe. And beginning to slowly and gently bring some movement into the body, wiggling fingers, wiggling toes, gently turning the head from side to side, rolling to one side and opening your eyes, coming to seated as you're ready.